Xero Vulnerability Report. To access the Vulnerabilities Report, expand Xero Reports found in the left margin and select Vulnerabilities. The Xero Vulnerabilities Report displays device firmware version, provides a CVE score, and supporting CVE detail to assist in the identification and remediation of vulnerable devices. CVE, short for Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, is a list of publicly disclosed computer security flaws. See www.cve.org for more information. The Xero Vulnerabilities Report has two charts and two tables. The Asset Vulnerabilities chart in the upper left corner shows columns with a count of assets in each severity category. Specific device detail for the selected severity category is presented in the Asset Vulnerabilities and Exposure table beneath. The Vendor Vulnerabilities chart in the upper middle of the page shows stacked horizontal bars listing the count of unique CVEs by vendor. Specific vendor and CVE detail is listed in the Vendor Vulnerabilities and Exposure table to the right. The device firmware version displayed in the report is obtained by SNMP queries. Resolution of device firmware is currently limited to those devices that meet the following criteria. A. The device supports the SNMP protocol and SNMP is properly configured on the device. B. SNMP tests have been assigned to the device in Xero. C. The Xero Data Gathering Engine server has route to the device for SNMP protocol queries. And D. The vendor offers the firmware version in response to SNMP queries. Not all devices will have firmware version and CVE details presented in the dashboard. The columns of the Asset Vulnerabilities chart include vendor, vendor name, model, device model identification, type, device type. Note that the fields vendor, model, and type are statically assigned at the time of initial adoption into Xero. Any modifications, replacement, or repair of a device, which results in a change to any of these variables, will require a manual update in the Xero database. Version. Version data is obtained dynamically from SNMP queries. Firmware. Firmware version data is parsed from the version column data. Available firmware. The latest firmware available as published by the vendor. CVE ID. The CVE identification of security vulnerabilities associated with the current version of the device firmware. Base score. The base score represents the Common Vulnerability Scoring System metric assigned by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST. Description. Details of the firmware vulnerability. Organization. Organizational name. IP. Device IP address. Location. Subsite location of the device. Site, where the device is located. County, geographic location of the device. And view. This is a link to nvd.nist.gov, including the specific details of the vulnerability. Note that the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, CVSS, is an open framework for communicating the characteristics and severity of software vulnerabilities. CVSS scores are assigned by the National Vulnerability Database. CVSS scores range from 0, no concern, to 10, critical concern. See more information at nvd.nist.gov.